Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brandon. Welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find latest album reviews. You can find our band interviews, and you can find other musical-related content on the channel. I post 5 days a week at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can make sure to check out those sorts of things. If you're watching this, I'm sure you're a fan of The Wise Man's Fear. We just did an interview with them, which is also going out at around the same time this is out, so check it out. It's awesome. They go through Valley of the Kings a little bit more, their writing process, things of that nature. I think it's very informative if you really want to know about the band. It's awesome. I thought it really came out awesome, and I'm excited for you guys to check it out. And if you're a new subscriber, thank you for hitting that sub button. If not, please consider subscribing, hitting that thumbs up, share it. It goes a long way. But tonight, we're going to be talking about The Wise Man's Fear's newest record, Valley of Kings. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this band, I've had them on for the channel for many different times on different occasions, and they are such a big supporter of the channel, and I was super stoked when they got announced for Sharp Tone. They're their newest signee, and they're releasing this record, which comes out this Friday, so make sure to go pick it up when you get the chance. But I'd also like to thank Jacqueline and Austin at Secret Service for Publicity Group for sending this over, giving me that early copy. It's much appreciated, and thank you guys for the immense support. But I'm going to go through each track, give you my thoughts and opinions on it, go through some pros and cons, and then finish out with an overall rating. So the first track is called Relics of Nux. I'm pretty sure I'm going to butcher a lot of this record. I would only say this one because this one doesn't seem like something I would say on a regular basis, so thank you guys for that. It will be on the internet forever for me. But anyway, getting back to this track, this is the first single that they had released. They released it with a music video, which is really awesome. You should check it out. But I really appreciate just throughout the entire discography that they've created. They released Castle in the Clouds back in 2015 and then Lost City in 2017, and for them to kind of continue like motifs in their different records, I think is really cool. They kind of go more in depth in it in terms of the interview, so you can check that out later on. But in this record specifically, it has a lot to do with kind of like Celtic, like old school sorts of instrumentation that is obviously played off by in like the album art, like some of the like music videos, things of that nature. It has that sort of like, you know, like Knights kind of like similar styling, and I like how they really go in depth on each kind of like type of instrumentation they use for each record, and how kind of diversive they can be throughout, you know, the different records that they've released so far, and then also kind of continuing the same kind of similar story arcs that they have created over the years. But getting back to this song in particular, I thought it was really good. I think just the way that they thematically flesh out things has always been something that I've appreciated as being a fan and a friend of the band. It's something that I think Paul is just an absolute mastermind behind it. And I know when I did the interview and stuff like that with them, he kind of goes into the more like lyrical aspects behind it and like coming up with the different instrumentations, as I had mentioned earlier. So they all kind of come together. But at the beginning of the song, I really like this sort of harps, the strings, the kind of musical layers that carry throughout this record, and just, again, the theming of the record in general. Joe definitely comes in with an absolute punch. He rips this song apart, and I just love his screams in general. I think his range is really incredible, from his kind of lower screaming / gutturals to like higher screaming, where he kind of has that sort of like Fry scream, and just it really cuts. So he really expands the range, not only in this song but just throughout the entire record in general. But I really dig that. There's also a nice trade-off between Joe and Tyler in this song. Tyler's got really just a nice pristine kind of clean voice, and he just cuts through a song super well. So to have two vocalists in one band that just really kind of cut through a mix super well, I think speaks to just their band dynamic, but also just the arrangement of like how the songs kind of work out, and how they're playing off I would say a pretty big strength of the band. So enjoy that. Definitely, as I had mentioned, Joe's lows in this track are absolutely gnarly. If you haven't listened to this one already, I would highly recommend it. It's already out because they have the single out for it, so you can go check that out. I also like that they show off Tyler's kind of singing range as well. He really expands himself and allows the kind of like his kind of clean vocals to really take hold in a track like this. I think it's a good mix of both screams and clean singing as well. So it doesn't feel like one's a little bit heavier than the other, but in terms of just like full weight, in terms of like singing prowess, I think they both do a fantastic job. I also just like the chorus is probably my favorite portion of the track. I really dig that a lot. But something that really took me by surprise was the second pre-chorus, or kind of like bridge portion of the song. There's this really like almost interesting sub bass octave thing going on, and it plays off of more of Tyler's more pop and kind of R&B inspired vocals. So that was really interesting, and I was very curious to hear that in this track in particular, but I think it just kind of works with the overall vibe of this song in particular. And I really enjoyed this song overall. It's probably definitely one of the stronger songs off the record in general, and it's definitely one you can go check out right now. So we're going to move into track number 2, which is Breath of the Wild. This one was very cool. I think it leads in super well from the first track. I think the way that they transition between songs have been really well executed, and you'll hear more about that as I go a little bit more in depth into the record. But I would say the MVP of this track is definitely Cody. His lead guitar parts were absolutely awesome. The only problem that I have with it is that I feel like it sits very low in the mix. So when you're listening to it, because most of the time I'm listening to it through headphones, or I listen to it through my car speakers, and it just felt like there was just a little bit, if it was just turned up a little bit more and it was a little bit more apparent, I feel like this would be definitely up there with some of my favorites off the record. But I feel like that kind of holds it back a little bit. I'd love to hear, and there's definitely songs on this record that have like a stronger lead prowess to it. So I feel like they could have turned it up just a slight bit more, and it would have made the song that much more special to me. But overall, I think it's a nice kind of contrast. I feel like Relics of Nux was like a little bit more on the heavier side. This one's still pretty heavy, but I think they expanded more and towards the more melodic range of their band. The piano is a really nice touch as well, and I think there's, no pun intended, there's kind of like this airy, breathy feel to it, and it really has this nice expansiveness to it that I think a lot of people will come to appreciate in a track like this, and it kind of makes itself known in other tracks on this record as well. So to kind of have, again, that sort of theming or that sort of vibe in a track, and for it to kind of reinstate itself into other tracks, I think is just really great songwriting. So I really enjoy that as well. The dynamics between Nathan's vocals and Tyler's vocals are just really solid. There's another track off this record, and I know I keep prefacing future tracks, but truly they do a great job of kind of, situating certain tracks off the record. So they do a great job of using Nathan's vocals, he has like this kind of like grit and like warmth to his vocals in comparison to Tyler's vocals, which are really cutting, they're really clean, and I think their clean vocals together pair super well. And I remember referencing that back in Lost City when I did a review of that, was that just I love the dynamics between their two voices. I think it is just really well executed. And then when they kind of all come together in that bridge portion where Joe does the screaming, Tyler does his clean singing, Nathan does his clean singing, I think it really just amplifies the track and just really powers that track so much further than I feel like most people are expecting it to go. And I think it just goes to show how well and how thoughtful they are with dynamics, and it just really works with a song like this. Strong, powerful, and again, really enjoyed this song way more than I probably give it credit for. It's definitely one of those sleeper songs off the record. So we're gonna move into track number 3, which is Tree of Life. This one, again, as I had mentioned before in Breath of the Wild, I like the transition between this song and Breath of the Wild. I thought that was really well executed. It's just like this really like nice soft piano like melody going on, and they kind of like add that into the beginning portion of this song, and then it kind of bleeds in as well. As I mentioned in Breath of the Wild as well, there's a lot more Cody in this track that I definitely love. His lead guitar parts throughout this entire record, I feel like will go unnoticed by most. So I feel like I would love to point out when there's some really great kind of lead portions on this record. So definitely another great track for Cody. Shouts to Cody, love my guy here. But this one I think was really solid. I don't think there's anything particularly to write home about. I think it's just a really well done song. But I know a lot of you are here for that most important thing, which is at the 2-minute mark and goes to around the 2 minutes and 10-second mark, which is that sick pan flute solo. You know what I'm saying? I feel like at first it was almost a joke to me at first, and then I went back and listened to it again. I like literally threw my headphones at my computer, and I was like, "There's no way they included the pan flute solo," but they wind up doing it, and it's definitely serious, and I think it works with this track in particular. I think it's just kind of, I wouldn't say abrasive, but it's definitely something that I feel like most people would not expect if they don't know anything about the band. They're just like, oh, is this like satirical? But it's not. I think it really works with the song. And I think it's definitely the saving grace of this track in particular. But nonetheless, enjoyed this song. Is it one of my favorites? No. Is it one of the worst songs off the record? Probably not, but I feel like the pan flute solo absolutely saved that song in my book. So we're gonna move into track number 4, which is Forest of Illusions. I really dig this track a lot. I know that they had mentioned it a lot in the interview that we did. Tyler, I think it's both Tyler's and Paul's favorites, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it is for good reason one of the better tracks, if not one of my favorite tracks off the record in general. I think Tyler's vocals are just extremely strong in this track. I think he does a great job of, again, doing those really beautiful melodic runs, but also like just the way his voice kind of cuts through a track is really well executed. That chorus, every time that chorus hits, oof, chef's kiss, my guy. Love that. I love that portion of it. As well as that, I think that this one includes a lot of the like fantasy core aspects of this band. There's a lot more like kind of nuances. There's some like nice, like real kind of acousticy sort of like instruments. I'm not going to name them because I really honestly don't know, but I know it's definitely not like guitar. It's definitely not any of that sort of stuff. I feel like it is definitely Celtic, old school sorts of instruments, and I think they do a great job of integrating it in a track like this, where it does have some big dynamics, but also at the same time there's some really beautiful kind of softer, more melodic moments, and then it kind of builds to a really beautiful crescendo towards the end of the song, and I think they utilize it in a nice way, especially just nuancing it into the beginning portion of the track. I would say that first verse, it's a little bit softer, you hear it, but it's not as pronounced. And then once you get to after the chorus and into the second verse, then you start to hear it more. They bring it out a little bit more. It's a little bit more forward thinking in later on in the track, and I think that that's great. I feel like if they just kind of took it in that first verse and they just hit you with it right away, it might be just a little bit too much, but just kind of allowing the listener to kind of build towards that point is really awesome. But again, really well done. I also love the bridge a lot. I think that was probably my favorite portion of this track, and just how it kind of gets to this like massive wall of sound towards the end of this portion of the song. I think it's just really well executed. That kind of like slow, I wouldn't even say like slow breakdown, but it's almost like, again, it's got like that kind of like chugged effect to it, but it just really kind of builds this awesome crescendo moment, and it's definitely, I would say, one of the strongest tracks off the record in terms of theming, as well as just instrumentation, vocally. It's just one of my, I would definitely put it in top 3 off this record easily, just because of the whole theming process, as well as just the instrumentation, and vocally it's super strong as well too. So we're gonna move into track number 5, which is The Cave. This one is probably pretty close to my favorite. I would say this is number 2 for me. There's definitely one more track that I think blows all of those tracks out of the water, but this one just really works. I love this sort of high energy of this track. I think it really just has this really powerful energy to it that I think once people listen to it, they're gonna say like, wow, this track's really good. And I'm glad that they didn't release it as a single, because I think it just really works. And before What Went Wrong, I think it just is a good kind of transitional song. But anyway, getting back to the song itself, I love the sort of just super kind of like haunting kind of feel at the beginning. It's really well done. And then once Joe comes in, it just breaks that shit down. And I really appreciate that. His screams are just super tight and just super powerful. And I really, really dig that. I also dig a portion of the track that kind of has this really cool, I don't want to say syncopated part, but just the way that the kind of strings, the drums, and the guitars kind of line up super well is awesome. And that's at the 35-second mark to around the 47-second mark. There's this like kind of like string kind of choppiness to it that I appreciate, kind of reminiscent of how I mentioned in their last review of Lost City, more so like that Born of Osiris, Shokran kind of vibe. And I definitely appreciate that about this song in particular. But I would say this song has my favorite chorus off the entire record. I love the contrast of Nathan and Tyler in this chorus. Like Tyler handles the first half portion of that chorus, and then like Nathan handles like the end portion, or it's just like all Tyler, or if it's like all Nathan. I think it just really just kind of hits different, and every time the chorus comes in this track, I really just swooned. I loved it so much. It's just so well executed. I think Paul does a great job on the drumming. I know that I've been kind of not talking about Paul's drumming as much, but I feel like in a track like this one, he just really absolutely rips it as well. But Joe's vocals were really well done. I think just the contrast between his lows against his like piercing sorts of highs, and I know that I've mentioned it in like either previous reviews, or I've mentioned it in this review in particular. Just the way he kind of cuts through a track is just really well done, and I think his screams just, you know, really further point that out. So I appreciate that. And I love the vocal layering on this track. I think it offers an insane amount of depth to this track in particular. And I think it's a powerful track that I think a lot of you, especially fans of The Wise Man Fears, will definitely enjoy a lot. One of the staple tracks, to me at least, that I think that a lot of people should check out from this record. So we're going to move into track number 6, which is What Went Wrong. As I mentioned, along with Relics of Nux, I'm probably butchering that again. I don't really care. But track number 6 was also a music video and another single that they had released as well. And this one, I really like Thomas coming out strong in this track. He's really laying down those thick bass lines. And I love the sort of lower end that he brings to this track in terms of like the darker tonality. It's a little bit more, I feel like, methodical, and I really appreciate that. This song has this really nice groove and kind of flow to it. Tyler's vocals have this real kind of like darker sort of undertone to it, which is a little bit more of a different vibe from what I expect him to have in these tracks so far. But I really feel like, again, I know I keep referencing Joe, but I think he does a great job of just, you know, hammering those heavy moments in. Like when you get into that like real big drop, it just, when Joe's screams hit, I mean, it's just powerful, and I love it. This track in particular, I would say, has the best balance of both heavy and melody as well. You know, I feel like while the heavy parts aren't like super, like it's not like a 50-50 split, I feel like the heavy parts really do make up a good portion of this song, but also the melody is really well executed as well from like Tyler's end too. So really well executed song. I think another thing that I really enjoyed was the subtleties of Paul's drumming. Just those little kind of like, you know, little like fills, little like cymbal hits. It's those just little nuanced things that I enjoy, and that I pick out more and more as I listen to the record. And so this one, I think this one's a super solid one. This one is also one you can check out now because there's a music video for it out on Sharp Tone's YouTube channel. So go check that out. But anyway, we're going to move in on to track number 7, which is The River and the Rock. And this one is definitely low-key one of my favorite tracks as well. I know I keep mentioning a lot of favorites, but this one in particular, I think, is going to fly under a lot of people's radars just because it is a softer song, and I think a lot of people come for this band to, you know, have more of that sort of energy to it. But this one just really well done. Again, showing a different side of the band. It has that softer feel to it, which I think really lends itself more so to like Nathan's vocals as well as Tyler's vocals, and they show off their skills in spades for sure. Tyler's vocals really kind of hit those like power notes, especially towards the later half of this track, and Nathan just does a great job of adding that sort of warmth and kind of grit to his vocals that I think that he doesn't really get to show off too much, particularly in this record. There's definitely some moments. I know that Tyler is, you know, the main person that does a lot of the clean vocals on this record, but again, Nathan's got such a unique voice, and so I love when they kind of contrast each other, but I also like hearing him just kind of solo in a track as well, just because I enjoy his voice in general. So really well done. I think the instrumentations do a complimentary job as well. There's some really kind of unique kind of flute or wind instruments in this song, again borrowing from that sort of Celtic influence as well. And I think a lot of the softer songs off of this record, or the more melodic portions of the track, definitely lend themselves more towards those really kind of, you know, thematic things that they've got going on in this record. So they do a great job of that, and I really enjoy this track a lot, and I think it's going to be slept on for sure. So we're going to move on to track number 8, which is Sands of Time. Joe's vocals, man, again, keep saying it, but he hits some super nasty gutturals on this track. I love the darker tonality of it. I think that they did a great job of including that in their past record, Lost City. But this one, I think he does a great job of kind of taking that sort of darker theme and pulling it in from like past records and pulling it into this track. It's definitely a welcomed change of pace, I guess, even in comparison to The River and the Rock. It's a little bit of a softer track, and to have this kind of more heavier track to kind of get you moving into, you know, the heavier direction, I think is really well executed, and I really enjoy that. The dissonance is definitely balanced out by this sort of happier chorus as well. I do feel like they do a good job of containing that sort of darker theming, but I feel like the chorus might not be something that I am particularly about in this track. I think that the chorus, while it is really nice, I think that they should have kept this sort of darker theming in this track and have it be more of a heavier song that I feel like, you know, people would be more interested in. I might be reaching a little bit, but I felt like listening to this track multiple times, I didn't really come to enjoy it as much as I feel like other tracks on the record previously. But that is just my opinion. And I hope that all of you maybe have a different opinion about this track, and I would be curious to see what you guys think about it. So we're going to move it on to track number 9, which is The Door to Nowhere. I really think this song does a way better job of kind of theming stuff and kind of keeping that sort of darker tonality. I think that was the main reason why I didn't enjoy Sands of Time as much as I feel like I enjoyed this track more. But the just transition from the heaviness in the verses into the really kind of more melodic, more powerful thing in the chorus, it's just really well executed, and I think the chorus is super strong in this track as well. Also, I like that long scream from Joe at around the 38-second mark to around the 45-second mark. I think that was super solid, and it's going to be interesting to see what other people think about it as well. Again, as I mentioned, super solid chorus, but probably my favorite portion of the track is this awesome riff by, I don't know if it's Cody, I would assume it is, but it could be Nathan, who knows. At the 1 minute and 23-second mark to around the 1 minute and 30 seconds 36-second mark. That was absolutely nasty. It has this real kind of dissonant overtone that I really appreciate, and I like that they're kind of including that. And this is kind of the precursor to the next track we'll be talking about in just a moment, but definitely appreciate that. I love the great melodic moments, especially in the chorus. I think just comparatively to the verses, where it's just a little bit more darker, there's just a bit more heaviness to it. It offers a nice kind of contrast to what you know and love from the Wise Man Fears. And I just love the dissonant layers going on in the verses. They're just nasty, aggressive, and I love that in comparison to Sands of Time, which I have mentioned before. But again, they don't feel like it's so much, like it's just not like overwhelming, but there's definitely that sort of darker, dissonant tonality to it. So we're going to move into track number 10, which is Firefall. And this one features our good homie of the channel, Sean of Make Them Suffer, which is kind of just a cool thing. I know that a lot of the guys in the band are big fans of Make Them Suffer, and I am as well. I love Make Them Suffer. So to kind of have that sort of moment, at least for me, as being a fan of the Wise Man Fears, being a fan of Make Them Suffer, you know, the hat, you know, I'm rocking the boys. It's just super cool to see that come full circle. So congrats to you guys. And I've been keeping that for a stupid long secret. So now everybody knows who's the guest feature on this track is. But if y'all were expecting a heavy track, I'm going to tell you this one is... this one's heavy. This one is super heavy. Like, if you liked Bloodlust from the last record, bro, it's gonna be even harder for me to describe to you how heavy this track is. But I love this one. It is just nasty. It is just, Joe goes in. They let Joe loose on this track, and it is nuts. Like, he goes absolutely ham. I've never heard him scream like this in my entire life, and it's nasty. It's just some nasty, nasty shit. Like, it is disgusting. So, in the best way possible. This is not a mean thing. This is like Joe going wild. So, but anyway, getting back to the track, he just rips it. Joe just rips it. That's all you just need. If there was anything that I needed to tell you about this track, is that Joe absolutely murders this track. But instrumentation wise, I really appreciate it. It's really dark. It's really dissonant. I kind of alluded to it in The Door to Nowhere, but this track, just like, The Door to Nowhere is good, and it's a great track, don't get me wrong, but this one takes an absolute dump all over that track. In terms of heaviness, this one is just the slow breakdowns, the dissonance, everything about it just screams this just nasty riffing. It's like they were talking about Brand of Sacrifice, and I kind of feel that sort of vibe in this track. While it's not maybe like just like super in your face, like technical, it's just nasty heavy. And speaking of just nasty heavy, they decided to add Sean from Make Them Suffer just to kind of, you know, put the cherry on top of this just heavy, nasty song. He comes in at around the 1 minute and 17-second mark and goes to around the 1 minute and 33-second mark, and he does some really great harmonies, like screamed harmonies with Joe, which is also another thing that your boy loves. I love the screamed harmonies, one of my favorite things. And then he also comes back in later on at the 2 minutes and 56-second mark to the end of the track, which is really awesome as well. But again, as I mentioned before, if you're just looking for a stupid heavy track, then this is the one to listen to. 100%, 1000%, 1,000,000%. This one is the heaviest track off the record. I think this might be one of the heaviest songs that they've written. I think Bloodlust, as I mentioned, is a very close second, but this one, that thick. It is thick, and it is one of the best tracks I think you'll hear, you know, in terms of a heavy track, I think this year, for sure. So we're going to move into the last track, track number 11, the title track of the record, Valley of Kings. This one is my personal favorite. I think that they have done everything right on this track. And they've definitely saved the best for last, in my opinion. I love everything about it. coming from kind of the, the quintessential Wise Man Fears sounds that you come to know and love about this band. It has some really beautiful melodies. I also think it has some really passionate, like heaviness to it that I've always appreciated about this band. I think that they do a great job of balancing out those two, and you can find like great moments throughout this entire song. I think they utilize everyone to the best ability. Paul's got some really great drumming parts. I think Thomas adds some really awesome bass line in this track. There's some really great guitar parts from both Nathan and Cody. Joe does a great job of screaming on this track. I think Tyler does a great job with vocals. Same with Nathan as well. And they kind of just find that great blend of everything and really kind of put it into one track. If there was one track that isn't out that I'd recommend for people to listen to, is absolutely this one. I think if you're a longtime fan of the band, there's definitely more stuff you can take out of it. I don't want to ruin it or spoil it for anybody, so I will not care to mention that. But if you've been a long time fan, I feel like they do a good job of playing homage to you, being a fan like in terms of theming. They do a little bit of harking back to certain songs in their previous discography. So again, if you've been a fan since 2015, you're gonna really enjoy stuff from that. If you've been a fan since 2017 from Lost City, you're gonna find moments in there in this track too, as well as other tracks off this record. And again, they do a great job of kind of strongly using that motif and filling it into this track, but also taking motifs from other previous records and pulling it into this track and into other tracks off of this record in general. Again, really enjoyed this a lot. I think that, again, they have those moments where if you're longtime fans, they have these nuggets of like throwback sorts of things. And if you're a new fan, like, I think it also gives you the opportunity to go back and listen to previous records and to kind of pick up on those sorts of things. So, I really love this track. I think, again, it hits all of the T's for me, crosses all the T's, dots all the I's, and it is one that, again, ends this record off beautifully and kind of closes out that beautiful story arc that they've created over the 3 records. So if you've been a longtime fan, you're going to get a lot more out of it, but if you're a new fan, you're also going to enjoy just a really great closer track that I hope that will implore you to go check out previous records. So some pros and cons that I have about this record. I don't really have any cons. I really love this record, and it's not just because we're friends and stuff like that. I really just think that in general, just the way that they kind of theme different things, the way that they're able to kind of incorporate different elements from, different eras of music and how they like do it not only in this record, but previous records, I think it just speaks to how thoughtful and how caring they are with their music. So I always feel like I have to point that out. The deep lore, so if you are a fan of the band for a while, I think that is a huge pro. They're going to be pulling from different things from past records, and I think that's really awesome. So the theming of it is really well executed as well. I think vocally it's super solid, not only with Nathan's vocals, but also with Tyler's and Joe's screaming. I think they all do a really great job of just doing the full gambit of different things. While I'd love to hear probably Nathan sing a little bit more, I understand I don't want it to take away from what Tyler does either. So I appreciate that. Instrumentally, it's really solid. Again, there's certain stuff that I feel like isn't just, they're not rewriting the script. You know what I mean? They're a metalcore band. Like, they're gonna do stuff that, they're gonna do breakdowns. It's not a technical record, but I think instrumentally, the way that they incorporate the different elements of like kind of like Celtic music, I think integrated with the metal stuff, I think is just really well done, and I appreciate it from that musical aspect, even though I know it's not like a Animals as Leaders record, or it isn't a any sort of other band like Periphery or like a Veil of Maya track. So I really appreciate that about this band in particular, and I think they do a great job of closing out the story arc, as I had mentioned before. So my overall rating for the Wise Man's Fear Valley of Kings, I'm going to be giving it a 9.6 out of 10. Definitely a record to check out. One of my favorite metalcore records of this year, easily. I think the theming of it is just really beautiful. I think the way that the three different vocal parts really work together well. Instrumentation, it's really solid. Way that they kind of have some really beautiful melodies, but also really heavy moments. I think it just offers a really nice stark contrast to this band in particular. So let me know in the comments what you think about this record. If you agree, if you disagree. Like I had mentioned, it comes out this Friday. I'll leave a link in the bio so you can go pre-order it. I am very excited to get my pre-order, and I'm very stoked for this band. I can show nothing but love for these guys. They've supported me for probably a good 3 years now, and just to see them sign the Sharp Tone and work really hard at what they're doing just inspires me to continue doing what I do. So definitely check this record out when it comes out. I know I'm going to be very excited for y'all to check it out when it comes out on Friday, and definitely stream it. Go buy it if you can afford it, and go support these homies because I love them so much. But if you enjoyed this content, I know this is a little bit of a longer review, but I know them personally, so I feel like I had to do a little bit more of a justice. Please hit that thumbs up, share it, subscribe. It goes a long way. I know that people always ask for like thumbs up and subscriptions and all that stuff, but honestly, it helps with me grow my channel. It helps me get out to more people like you. So if you can do all that stuff, it would mean the absolute world to me. So if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Like I said, my name is Brandon. We hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace.